Well, so we're talking about where to start our Agile transition, and this is actually a really good question. But if you're going to say why we're improving, or we have some motivation, obviously, to do some transition to Agile methods to be more effective, another good question to ask is what are the causes of software failure in the first place? In other words, understanding why we have challenges is a good idea before we start going on any sort of improvement. So I want to actually just kind of step back a little bit and present a little summary of a study we actually had researched and produced by Empire Research Group earlier this year. And the study was basically to investigate the causes of software failure in the industry. So, and what they came back with was this 4 reasons 68% of development projects will not succeed this year. So we actually didn't go ask them with a title. We just said, look, we know there are a lot of software failures. Why is that happening? And basically they went out and did a lot of research from the literature that's available and came up with this. And here are some of the things that are important, because these are things we're going to have to address. If we don't solve these issues and challenges, then just, there's no magic fix, and we're probably not going to make improvement. So the first reason was project selection methods are often bad. You start off on the wrong foot. You may get a really kind of a never-ending cycle of doing the wrong thing and then trying to correct it. And according to IAG Consulting, 68% of projects are more likely to have a marginal outright failure than a success based on how they do business analysis. In other words, if you do too much, too little, it can be a big problem. And up to 80% of budgets from a challenged or failed project are consuming self-inflicted problems. And by this they mean they actually, you've gone in and you've either done, again, too much analysis, and then you go off and you do things that where you spend a lot of time and haven't accomplished what you need to, or perhaps not enough, and it results in a considerable amount of rework. So analysis, understanding what your real problem is a key issue. And too much or too little can be a bad thing. Not taking an holistic view, and this is something we've actually seen an awful lot, where many issues associated with project failure are people and managerial issues, not technical. There's a great focus in the Agile space right now about improving the team with Scrum, but in fact, 65% of the issues are not technically related. Things like extreme programming are often very technically oriented. So we're not saying that XP and Scrum aren't right. They're good, but it's a question, is that really where the focus is? 20% of technical issues are directly attributed to the programming team. So a lot of the development work is, even though the development area is the place that gets a lot of the drama, it's what gets a lot of the focus. It's where people are looking when things are late. What we're really saying is technical issues and team issues are actually not the cause most of the time, but rather something further upstream has caused the problem. So we've seen this ourselves. So when they actually came back with this reason, it was not at all a surprise to us. And then again, if you're going to make a start to Agile, we want to make sure we understand what the problems we have really are. Okay, not integrating with the company culture. No matter how much industry and software expertise consultants have, they can't possibly know all the cultural and organization issues involved in your organization. So sometimes people bring people in and have the consultants do it. They take over the project, they make it happen, or they tell people what to do. And this does not work for the employees' needs, because the employees do not ever actually learn the things, and more important, the employees actually know more about the problem, and they're the ones who really need to do the solving of the problem. So consulting and training must incorporate coaching, not just telling people what to do, so employees can learn how to do the work themselves. Follow-up coaching should be available where necessary. So this is actually, again, something that, it's kind of funny. We get brought in objectives to do a lot of consulting and coaching work. We do assessments, or rather, how do you better understand where people are to create a roadmap? And we sort of half joke, but it's really the truth, is we're going to come in and we're going to listen to what people say, and then we're just going to feed that back to management. That's kind of a funny thing sometimes said in the world, but it really is true. People know more about their job, those that are working on it. You have to attend to that culture. Consultants can see patterns of things to give guidance, but it's really critical that we take advantage of how does the culture of the company going to react to change? What do the people understand? That's actually a very critical piece. and really not knowing when to abort. If you get into a bad project, how do you know there are problems? So if you get into overwork, overtime, unrealistic expectations, and go to a death march, you're burning tremendous amount of resources for something that is maybe already doomed anyway. But the other piece, see it if things continue, where the superiors say to do it, there's sort of personal or group financial loss, things of this nature. Part of this is an indication that other things are not functioning well. If you ever get into a situation where you have death marches, then what that really is an indication that you can't actually determine where you are well. It's kind of like it's a symptom of a problem that probably occurs even when you don't go into a death march. Death marches happen when you really can't see the status of a project and adjust quickly. So even when it doesn't lead to a death march, most projects are still having this lack of ability to get proper status and things of that nature. So what we need to do to fix things is start getting accurate diagnosis. We need to really understand that there's something else that's causing these budget overruns. That the proper business analysis, doing things at the right level, and it really means, as I said before, a right amount of business analysis at the right time. So we need to understand more how we're going to do our work. This does not mean the massive plans and the big batching that waterfall implies, but it doesn't mean not doing any at all. There's a nice balance here. We have to actually choose the right projects, and this is something we've seen very important and sounds obvious, but actually most of the time we find people don't do this. What are the right projects that'll make the best, that have the best value and actually have the most likely ability to complete, and you actually monetize it, meaning that you actually say this is the value of this project. Many companies undertake projects having no idea what the real value is. It's just like, this looks important, so let's go do it. And then, after a while, you just start building projects without any real idea of what the return is, and you can't measure what the return you're actually getting. So it gets very difficult to prioritize. Everything just seems to be, well, this is really important, and that's somewhat important, but there's no tangible way of measuring, and it causes problems. Okay, so we've got to get rid of assumptions about failure. If we think that the failure is like who had it last, that it's the development team, then that's actually not accurate. They have it only 26% of the time. So if you focus on them, you're only going to get a 26% improvement. You've really got to begin a project with this holistic approach to ensure that all involved, not just the development team, are being looked at in how to improve. And this is particularly important in where to start, because the standard way of starting agile transitions has been basically, oh, let's just get a team going and we'll make a successful pilot and then we'll expand it. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit later this morning about how sometimes successful pilots actually lead you down the wrong road if you're not looking at how to pick a pilot project. So we need this holistic approach. Local optimizations, just looking at one area, can often lead to some serious problems. So how do we align business and technology? Now, this is more of an IT thing, but let me also explain this from a product development. These guys were focused mostly in the IT area, but I'm sure a lot of you out there are in the product space. But there's this disconnect. Business executives think, IT is often a socially awkward group with zero business savvy, but IT is amazed when business executives can successfully power up their PCs and open a browser. So there's not a lot of trust necessarily or respect here. So, many projects depend on IT business alignment, yet so many fail because the alignment's like Bigfoot. Plenty of people believe it exists, but good luck spotting one in the real world. Now, another way of talking about this alignment, in fact, in some ways, the fact that you have to even say aligning the two together is part of the problem.